Alright, this is my new 5540 rack from ARS. This is going to hold 40 animals. This is the hybrid rack, so I just thought I'd take a moment here to show how it's packaged, so you can see for freight purposes and maybe storage how big it is on the pallet just sitting here in my garage. But let's get started on construction. Alright, I pulled off the heat panels, which are packed on top, and then underneath that, if you can tear off a side, you'll see all your parts and your tubs. So let's get to it. This is exciting for me. Okay, so the first step after they want you to count all your parts, which I didn't honestly do, is to lay out your base frame. These pieces are going to come shrink wrapped together so they stand out from all the rest. And when you lay it out according to the instructions as well, you want these holes towards the outside of the frame on both sides, so both here on the long side and on your short side. And then you're going to put down your plates, which I misplaced, hold on, and it's going to tell you to lay these plates out with this long dimension front to back, as opposed to putting it the other way. Well, no, that's working either way I hold it, like that. That would be incorrect. This is correct. So the long dimension between these four holes facing front to back. And then you're just going to screw down all four sides. I've already got those other ones. Coming back to these. These are going to be the plates that you place your rollers on. And incidentally, if you're going to create a reptile room, I suggest you don't do it on carpet. But it's too late for me to change that now. As you can see, all my racks and stuff are already on carpet. If you can get a little helper, then you're that much further ahead in the game, because the smaller hands are going to help out a lot. And my little girl Sydney, who's 7, is being the best assistant ever. You're like the best helper ever. Okay, so you've got your wheels on and you flip it all over, and this is how it's going to look on all four corners. And then we'll start putting on each level. Okay, next step is we're going to attach the slider rails to the side rails. When you do that, you want to have this set up with these holes that are not drilled exactly in the middle, so these are closer to the top. You want the hole towards facing the top as you attach these. So these are going to go on here, like so, and then be attached, so you'll have 20 of those to do for each side. Next step would be to separate the front rails from the back rails. The front rails are the ones that you see in the foreground here that have the two screw holes next to each other in the middle, and your back rails are the ones along the back here that have 9 holes. Those ones with the 9 holes are going to be your back rails that you're going to assemble the backstops on. Now when you go to assemble these backstops, you want the holes towards the bottom. So as you place this piece on here, there's going to be an overlap, and that's how it stops the rack from sliding out the back of your rack for you, or stops the tub, excuse me. So these need to be hanging down like this after they're assembled. The tip I want to pass on that I found made this easier is to keep one down here while you're assembling the stopper on this piece. So this holds it for you, because if you're trying to balance one on the edge here and screw it in, it just keeps falling and getting in the way, but this one holds it in place for you while you're assembling. Okay, now we're going to start assembling the rack, and so we're going to put in the side pieces to the back. Once you've got that in, go ahead and screw this one in the back connection, and then take your double-sided sleeves and put those in the back there, as you can see. And then the other side's going to be over here. And then coming back around, you're going to take these individual pieces and slide them in with the holes towards the front of the rack. So the solid piece goes in the back, and the smooth side goes down. So these little ridges will be face up, and the holes will be towards the front of the rack. And just slide those in.
Okay, so if gets a little stuck on this, putting it sliding, just push these to different sides and then slide it in. And then when you get like kind of some of it in, just slide it in all the way and then push all of it back and you're done.
Awesome. Okay, and then you just need to add in the front piece. And same as before, you're going to be drilling in these corners and these two in the front. So again, just remember to keep these ventilation holes oriented towards the front of the rack. The back of the rack there is going to be solid. And I want to show you an alternative idea as well. I was assembling each level on the floor and then raising it up and putting it on here, and I figured why not try putting them together like this on the rack and just screwing each of these pieces in. And then just like I was on the floor, slide these pieces in here, put the face back on, and so far it's working like a dream, and it's a lot easier on my back. So I want to give you this suggestion as well. Might work for you once you get a couple levels up, to just assemble it this way. So again, start with the back, put the sides on, screw those in, then put your support pieces in the middle. Then we're going to slide in the tops, and then we'll put the piece on the face. Show you it there. So far it's working. Just an alternative idea for you. Oh yeah, that's much better. Now that I completed a level that way, I'm going to do the remainder that way, at least until it gets too tall to stand with my step stool. But that was far easier on my back, and I don't think it took any longer. Probably could have been faster. And now I realize I just put one on backwards, so I'm going to have to disassemble and slide that one around, but hopefully you'll be more careful than I was. Okay, always better to learn from somebody else's mistakes than to make them yourself. So now I've fixed that one, and all the holes are towards the front again like they're supposed to be, and we can move further. Alright, so the levels are completed, and now it's time to get the heat panels on the back of each rack, or each level I should say. So you're going to have a stack here of little rubber pieces. It's just kind of a spacer basically, and Velcro strips. I'm going to find it easiest to put the Velcro on top of there first, and then you have to decide how far from the back of the tub you want your heat panel to be. I decided I want 3 inches from this upright to the back end of the heat panel, and rather than have to measure that each time, I just cut an old AAA card down to 3 inches and just made myself a little jig. So I'm going to set that there, come along on each level and put in the Velcro strips on both sides, and then we can go back and lay in the heat panels. Keep in mind, one panel is labeled as the bottom panel, and there's actually the marker down there on it, but the rest of them don't matter where they go. Just figure out how far from the back you want your panels before you get all your Velcros put down. And just like so. There we have it. Alright, you can see here all the heat panels are in place now. And I should have mentioned earlier, before you decide which end of the power cord is coming out there, you need to know how you're going to place your power strip. Once it's in the wall, or up against the wall rather, will it be plugged into the left or the right side of your rack, maybe down the middle. And keep in mind that the power cord here for the power strip is going to plug into the back of the thermostat, which is probably going to be at the top of your rack. So you want this coming out the top. Don't mistakenly think you want it upside down from what you see here, coming out the bottom to plug into your power outlet in the wall, because it will not be plugged into the wall directly. It's got to go into the thermostat first. I'll also mention that I left the top and bottom receptacles open in case I need to plug anything else in at some point. You'll notice here I keep my green tree pythons above the rack. So if for some reason their thermostat went out in a pinch, I could unplug that, plug it into one of these racks, and some heat that's regulated is better than nothing at all until I could get another thermostat specifically for them. And then I want to mention here placement of the thermostat probe. Make sure you've got it between 2 tubs so it's not going to be run over by the tub. You don't want the tub trying to run across the top of that. I don't think it would work, but if it did somehow, you could easily dislodge it and your heat would get too high. So just make sure it's placed between two tubs. And then I just tape it down there with electrical tape. And I put a little mark on the other side just so I know down the road where my thermostat probe is and make it easy to check on. Alright, so the best part is after your rack's all completed is putting your animals in, getting everything set up. One more thing I wanted to mention is the purchase of a thermostat. I suggest going ahead and grabbing one with the purchase of your rack. This is the Herpstat 2. So line 1 there is the temperature I have this rack set at, and line number 2 is powering a different rack. But I think it's a good idea to get at least a 2 or above, so you could have 2 different temperatures set if that's your preference for the rack itself. But this is everything completed in its entirety. And it's hard to get enough room in here, but you can see got another ARS 7030 rack next to it. But that marks the completion of the 5540.